Now, if the markets aren't all that impressed by the new bailout for Spanish banks, the press there isn't either, is it?
No, they're really not. Remember Mariano Rajoy, when that was announced over the weekend, one of his key lines was that this is a bailout without conditions for Spain. That's certainly not what El País thinks. They've got the rescue plan will still leave Spain under the vigilance of a troika on their front page. They say, what exactly does this achieve for ordinary Spaniards? The austerity measures of the government are still going to be inspected by people from the IMF and the BCE. And this, of course, is a bailout for banks. But where's the bailout, they say, inside for the quarter of Spanish people? Half, of course, of under 25s who are unemployed at the moment. They've got an interesting article in there by the American Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman, who says, we've just seen these bank bailouts come over and over again, one after the other, but you'd have to have an enormous faith in a God that doesn't exist to believe that the austerity measures being imposed on Spain will actually help get all those unemployed people back to work. So they're very cynical about it. And the front page headline, if I have another look, is the European Union thinking about serious last-minute measures for if Greece abandons the Eurozone. They've got some pretty apocalyptic stories on that front page, similar to what we've heard before, but they say it was leaked from the meeting of European finance ministers on the 21st of May. Things like the idea of freezing Europe's borders, controlling the amount of money people can take out of the banks and the amount they'd be able to exchange.
Now, you just mentioned that obviously the crisis in Greece, the election's coming up on Sunday, and there are growing fears that Greeks will effectively vote themselves out of the euro.
Yes, that El País French page story is, if you like, part of a bigger international media concern that the Greeks this Sunday will vote for the left-wing party Syriza, led by Alexis Tsipras, and whether or not he'd be prepared to go all the way in filling his promises about standing up to Germany on the subject of this bailout. The Guardian reckons today he really might, even if that meant effectively pulling Greece out of the euro. He's determined to defy those bailout measures if he did become Greece's Prime Minister. Foreign Policy magazine, though, takes the opposite tack, saying actually he's just trying to scare the Germans. He thinks at least that he's got the trump card that Greece is too big to fail. So he's trying to make the scenario of Greece pulling out of the euro sound as dangerous and apocalyptic as possible to try and force the Germans there to lighten Greece's bailout terms.
Now, over on the British front pages, the phone hacking scandal is rearing its head again.
Yes, the Leveson inquiry again making front pages. This time it's because Chancellor George Osborne appeared in front of it yesterday. So Chancellor in denial is the Independent's front page. This is about whether or not the current government, the Conservative government, came to any kind of agreement with Rupert Murdoch before the 2010 election. If they agreed that they would support his bid, remember, to take over B-Sky B, if his newspapers supported them. Now, he denied that yesterday. Now, it might sound quite bad, Claire, to have politicians being accused of striking that kind of backroom deal with media moguls, but at least he's not being accused of directly buying favourable media coverage. Someone who has been, though, is Mexico's leading presidential candidate, Enrique Peña Nieto. The Guardian reports today that WikiLeaks cables sent by the US Embassy in Mexico back in 2009 say that they believed he was directly paying cable network Televisa to give him better and better coverage. Now, the amount of media control in Mexico is becoming a really controversial issue in the run-up to the presidential election there in just 3 weeks. And the New York Times reports it's become the focus of a new youth student protest movement that's taken to the streets there. Two big networks, Televisa and TV Azteca, make up for more than 90% of TV news coverage there. And young people who are unhappy about this monopoly have been picketing TV stations and marching in the street, particularly against this candidate Peña Nieto, who's well ahead at the moment. But they're unhappy not only because of his own links to corruption, but also because his party, the Institutional Revolutionary Party, are the same ones that governed Mexico really as a dictatorship for 70 years and have a dreadful human rights record. And he hasn't really gone back on that, so lots of people in Mexico are very worried about his being re-elected. The Mexican left-wing paper, though, La Jornada, is asking in its editorial today if he actually would accept defeat if he lost, or if he would call the millions of supporters he does still have out onto the streets, try and get the election recounted, and it looks what they're worried that the result could lead to civil unrest.
Okay, thank you very much, Elena, for running us through the international newspapers. You're watching live from Paris.